96.8 Dungeon Radio, the platform for independent creators.
This is 96.8 Dungeon Radio, the platform for independent creators. With me, Live. Today on the show, we got somebody that's a producer, songwriter, somebody that's representing that Uniondale, Long Island, New York City, by the way of Trinidad, my brother Ruben.
Peace.
Brother Ruben, what's good with you, my friend?
Everything is cool, brother. Everything is great.
Appreciate having you on the show, man. I'm good, man. I'm great. Vibrations is high, man.
Beautiful.
You know what I mean? Vibrations.
Yes, sir. That's how we got to keep it.
Very high vibrations, man.
Like De La say, three feet high and rising.
Absolutely, man. Let's talk about music, man. Let's talk about hip hop. Let's talk about all kinds of music, man.
Oh, beautiful. I'm with it.
So you being somebody that's from Trinidad, what was playing in your house coming up?
Oh man, everything, but I could be specific. So I have my cousin Ron. He's my big cousin, growing up in his house. So basically, this is how it kind of went with me. Was born in Brooklyn, and when I was about a few months old, about maybe 12 months, if that, 8 to 12 months, my parents sent me Trinidad. So grew up with my aunt and my uncle for a part of my life. And during that time period, my family, so to give you a little background on my family in Trinidad, the importance that they held in Trinidad as far as music, because with them, I'm a micro of their macro. I got so many family members doing so many different things and have done so many different things historically in Trinidad and beyond Trinidad. We'll get into some of them. Depending on how the conversation go, you might hear about more of them, But with me specifically, I came up in my Auntie Joan house. She had a big son. His name is Ron. And he's an extremely excellent guitarist, but he plays multiple instruments. So he taught himself guitar. This is a man that actually built his own, taught himself electronics and was able to build his own amplifiers. And I watched him do this stuff myself, build his own electric guitar from scratch, build his own car even. He built his own car even from scratch too. Got the body, got a Pinto engine, redid the heads, all of that. So this is that type of brain that I came up under, and he started me out on guitar. We had a upright piano in the house. Piano was something that, because music is a part of my family's life, beyond my aunts and my mom. So I had Ron in my time, but before Ron, his influences would have been my uncles. My uncle Bass, who later migrated into the Americas and helped to create a steel pan band. Trinis know what I'm talking about. West Indians alike, they know what a steel pan is, a steel drum, some people call it that. He actually was the first generation in my family to make steel pans from scratch. He learned the art form. He passed it on to my Uncle Patrick, and both of them in their era were top of their game, meaning a lot of people don't know. In Trinidad, we have different competitions around the festival time that people call Carnival, right? That people look at as a parade. It's not really it's a parade now because it's very public, but it has a spiritual background to it, which is something we could get into, eventually as well. But the aspect of it that we played a big part in was the two aspects. So I have a cousin named Wrangler in his time, and we're talking about black and white TV, radio time. He used to write calypsos, and he had put out a couple of songs that were hits of their time. And then he left the country, and we never saw him again. He went to Europe, and we haven't heard from him or saw him. But if he had stayed, he would have been pretty big, well known. He was already his first set of records was already hits for him. Um, then comes my uncle Bass, who got into steel pan, and he learned underneath Ellie Mannett and picked up that style, created his own style of syncing the drum, creating the notes, so on and so forth. Passed it on to my uncle. My uncle improvised on it even more. And we have our own sound. So people know of the Worrell family in the steel pan industry because my Uncle Patrick, for many, many years, was in the top three best, or some people like to say top five, um, best steel pan tuners, you know, in the country and in the world. So my uncle, he flew around the world. I used to go to Brazil and tune steel pans there in Brazil for bands there, all over the islands. He's even come up here doing that. Then my uncle Bass, we had a band in out here in Long Island called Ad-Lib a couple of years ago. They won competition, and their head, one of their players came up in the band from a little kid. I used to be there helping my uncle tune because at one point in my life, I left here as an adult and moved back to Trinidad to live. And while I was living back home, I was picking up the art form myself, learning how to make steel pans from scratch. So I actually can say I can make an instrument myself. I have a younger cousin now. She's the head of the orchestra, Trinidad Orchestra, and arranger and everything. And she makes steel pans and plays them beautifully. My mom is known in the family to be able to play any steel pan you put in front of her, and she plays it to a high level. So music, I was always around music. So fast forward, my cousin Ron was teaching me guitar. I was about 4 years old when I first started picking up the guitar with him, and they were teaching me piano as well. So I got into music that way. And in Trinidad, what was playing was originally calypso.
So
Then,
hold on.
mhm,
So
yes,
that's what was basically playing in your household, calypso, when you was coming up.
calypso,
And it was
soul
so hold on, wait.
music,
So
and
that
jazz.
was mainly
Mhm.
your family music you was hearing being played in your house when you was coming up, or outside artists as well?
Outside artists as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we also played a lot of soul music, a lot of jazz. I grew up in multiple homes, and my
Mm.
family is extremely diverse on both sides. On my father's side, my grandmother is Chinese. Her family descended from China. You know, her lifestyle was a farm. She owned a lot of real estate in town, and her family, they were brilliant in business, and she just continued it. So by the time I come around, she sold off the properties in town, and she owned a farm that was like that became a neighborhood because she started selling off portions of the land to people who wanted to buy, and those became our neighbors eventually. So I lived on a farm, so I lived that farm lifestyle, hands in the dirt, knowing that what that was about, not having any neighbors to slowly having neighbors, and that's central area of Trinidad, and that area is called Cuva. We did a lot of bartering back then, meaning like my grandmother had fruit trees. We would pick the fruits And if we wanted milk, we'll go to the milk farm, which was a couple of miles down, and we would barter buckets of fruit for milk, fresh cow's milk. You see in the pasteurizer, everything right there. So we did a lot of that in that area of Trinidad, right? So I had that coming up. Still tons of cane fields, dirt roads. That was the scenery. Um, so I had that aspect to me as well. Um, with the music, um, going back to my cousin Ron. He saw something in me from young. I can remember the first day he put the guitar in my hand. I'm left-handed. Everybody right-handed. I'm left-handed. So, you know, I put the guitar like a left-hander would, So then you already know the bass notes is not on top. They're on the bottom now, you know. But he's trying to teach me the right-handed way. And when he flipped it around, he's like, no, this is how you hold it. And he just saw I had a natural ability, you know. They all saw I had a natural ability to play piano and to play guitar. So that was my introduction to music. And the first people I heard rhyming were Calypsonians, you know. And then later on, uh, soca came about, Super Blue and these types of people.
Hold on, hold on, hold on,
I
hold
would hear them.
on. Give me a
Hmm.
second. Let's back up a
Yeah.
little bit. You said
Yep.
the first people you heard rhyming was who?
Calypsonians.
So they was rhyming in what language?
English,
Okay.
the way we speak our English, with the Trini slang and terminology. It's funny. Like
Well,
some
hold on,
people
wait a
ask
minute.
me,
So
yeah,
what kind of beats they was on? Like hip hop beats or calypso
mm,
beats?
calypso beats, because so calypso. Just to give you a little brief history, a lot of people don't really talk about calypso history, and if they do, they'll learn a lot about history in general, right? So you had tons of migrations before the slave era, right? Where slavery, you know, in America or in the Americas, slavery is a big part, right? And a lot of people, when they're talking about history, they just go and they stop there. They didn't think or may not know that there's a history before that, that you had West Africans that actually migrated into the Americas 600 years. This is dated in West Africa, you know, um, in Timbuktu. You can actually go to these old civilizations and see these recordings for yourself, and I employ people to do so, because it'll wake them up to a truer and a greater history than what they settle for, and calypso is a good genre for people to actually trace back, even if you're not of the culture, because it traces back to our original term for calypso. Before we came with the term calypso, we used to call it kaizo. And when you look up the word kaizo, you start to realize that there's a relation between West Africa and the Americas and the people who practice this thing that they call calypso. And I'll break down the similarities between hip hop and calypso. I actually had a debate online with somebody um, who was shooting shots at West Indians, trying to say that um, we believe or we say that we created hip hop. And I can speak for anybody in my country and say that we would never say something as foolish as that. It makes no sense, because the era that hip hop was actually manifesting in its broken elements before it became unified, and this is why we even use the term hip hop to describe what we do in America. Um, you could date back into the 50s. Trinis was now coming into this country in the 60s, sprinkles in the late 50s. So it wouldn't even make sense for us to say that we created hip hop. You know what I'm saying? It's foolishness. But a rapper by the name of Busta Rhymes said that due to the history he was fed about a particular individual who happened to be Jamaican, you know, and then, Americans started painting his statement across the board like all West Indians believe this or said this. When, why generalize a personal subject matter? Why not just go to that individual and deal with them and what they said versus generalizing and causing a chaos that don't need to be? But rhyming is something that we've done from the beginning of time around the world. It's nothing new. It's new to those who embark on it. You know what I'm saying? At the time they embark on it. You know what I mean? But rhyming is something that you can go back to. There's Egyptian scripts that are, and we ain't even going to use the word Egypt. There's Tom Mary scripts. We're going to go back to the original names. There's Tom Mary scripts that are written that were bedtime stories that's written in rhyme form. Are we going to say that they're the creators of hip hop? It don't make sense. You know what I'm saying? We've never say that. It don't make sense. You know. So in Trinidad, we had our music. We called it Kaizo. Kaizo comes comes from West Africa. This is the link. And what they spoke about is what we spoke about and still speak about when you're doing calypso. So calypso is an educational form of music in Trinidad, right? And basically what it was like you told stories, and you might tell stories about community issues like local issues or local things that's happening, and I'll give you examples. Um, and then you would talk about political things. You would talk about things going on in the world. Sounds like early hip hop. That's what early hip hop did. Early hip hop did the same exact thing. Talked about localized things like the message, right? But talked about worldly things as well. You know, did stories. Slick Rick, number one storyteller. You know, um, and funny stories. You know, like things to entertain you, to make you laugh. So we did the same thing, just in our country, you know, and we called it calypso.
So I got
And,
to
mhm.
so when did you actually meet hip hop? Hip hop, like Americanized
So,
hip hop.
so hip hop, the culture of hip hop, I came in contact with the culture of hip hop uh, when I came to Queens. When I came to South Jamaica, Queens, that's my introduction.
So
Now, the
so
person,
okay,
mhm.
go ahead. You about to answer
So
my
the
question. Go ahead.
yes, sir. So the person who introduced me to hip hop is my big brother, Godspeed. And his introduction was here in Daha in Trinidad. And then when we migrated up here, we're in South Jamaica, Queens, he made friends with people in the neighborhood. There was a brother by the name of Bill who was a poet that if you heard him, people called him an MC, and they became best friends, and then my brother had other friends that was just heavy into hip hop, and they educated him. Yo, we listened to this radio show on this, you know. And I've had this discussion with my brother in time before, and I even had to remind him because when you live in life, man, so many events just collapse and collapse on each other. You know what I mean? So sometimes you might forget something, but I had to remind them. The first radio show that we used to listen to was Mr. Magic. Um, Marley Marl. And then I had to show him, prove like, no, it was definitely Mr. Magic, and then
Hold on, I got a
we
question
listened to
though.
Marley Marl. Yeah.
Hold that thought. But wasn't Marley Marl and Mr. Magic together? on the Magic
Yes,
Show,
at a
right?
point. Yes, at a point. Yes, yes. But Marley Marl, after Mr. Magic left, Marley Marl and Pete Rock ended up having a show.
When years later, or
No, they had two times. So they had one in the 80s,
okay,
right?
yeah.
Marley Marl in Control show was in the 80s. And then they came out later on with Future Flavors.
Was that Sunday show they had on WBLS?
Which one you talking about?
Pete Rock used to have some on Sundays. He used to play.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
He
yeah.
used to
That
play a
was with
lot of
Marley Marl.
yeah, okay. You're right, because
That
Molly
was
Ball
called
was on the
Future Flavors.
turntables. I remember they used to play a lot of matter of fact, that's the first time I heard UN on the radio, was on their show.
Oh, true
Because
indeed. Which
because
would make
UN
sense.
UN was on the Pete Minstrel, the Pete instrumental
Yes,
joints. And I remember they was the only
absolutely.
song on there. I remember going with the guard to FYI to cop that word.
Absolutely, absolutely. Which makes sense. And so they they were bringing back the show, But Marley Marl had the Marley Marl in Control show, and then you had Red Alert, you know. So, but Mr. Magic, we heard the last years of Mr. Magic show, you know. That was our introduction officially into hip hop. And when I heard that radio show, I became fanatical with the sound. So on days I couldn't go outside and my brother was outside playing basketball, whatever, I'm in the house with a radio that my uncle built. My uncle Bass had built a radio from scratch. And he gave it to my mom. It was my mom's first radio when she came up here. Because, like I said, we're a musical family. We love all genres of music, you know. And she had gotten another radio that she used to keep downstairs when she's washing. So I took that radio and I would be there scrolling up and down the FM dial at different hours of the day on a weekend, you know. And then I would go to the AM station because I didn't know the difference. And I would be scrolling, 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 until I find something. And funny enough, I found a pirate radio show on an AM station as well that used to play hip hop songs that I didn't hear on Marley Marl's show. No, like a lot of people didn't even know Michael Jordan. They did a hip hop song for Michael Jordan. And a lot of people didn't even know
Really?
Michael Jordan had a
Hold up.
hip
I
hop
thought
song.
I
Yeah,
was okay. Go ahead. Go on. Go on.
yeah, yeah. This is after we playing basketball and all of that. Yeah, an artist actually created a song. I think it was Scorpio created a song called Michael Jordan, and it was bigging up Michael Jordan. The whole song was for Michael Jordan.
Never knew that. I had to go check that out now.
Yeah, and I heard that on the AM pirate radio show. They would just cut in and do their thing, you know. And
What was the name of the radio station
I
if you do remember?
wish I wish I remember that station, bro. I just remember it was on AM, and I remember literally it used to come through scratchy, like you're hearing the white noise on top of the songs, but I'm there fiend out, just listening, like amazed. You know what I mean?
So
And
go ahead.
yeah,
So I wa-
and my brother, yeah, go ahead, add
so
on.
so was that at that around that time did you start getting into music? Like far as
Yeah,
making it your
so
own?
all right, so with me, this is how it's funny. So I started with that guitar and piano, came up here, didn't have no guitar and no access to no guitar or piano, right? So the radio became my thing now. And on weekends, my mom would be washing. So she'll be downstairs in the basement and playing soul music, disco and all of that, because she's listening to Al Jackson, right? So, and I forget the other brother that was before Al Jackson, but it was mainly Al Jackson, I remember, right? So I'll be downstairs with my mom. I'll get bored of being upstairs by myself. I go downstairs, I'm in the basement with my mom. And my mom used to teach me all the dances because my mom was nice with the dancing. So she would teach me all the dances and we'll be dancing, you know, to that form of music. And then I got interested in that form of music, started listening to all the old hits and stuff like that. So now, fast forward, I'm going to PS80. I'm in school, and when I was in maybe first or second grade, I used to have to go to the library after school to wait for my brother because he had transferred from 80 and now he was going to 72 on Guy. So I'll be inside that library bored, but I found a section of the library that interests me. It had cassettes, like it had rows of cassettes, bro, you know. And I'm looking at the different artists and I know the names. I don't know the albums yet, but I know the names. So I went to the lady at the desk. I'm like, excuse me, these cassettes, I can only listen to them here or I can rent them and take them home with me. She was like, oh, they're for rent. So I was like, okay. So she's looking at me kind of strange though, because I'm like first grade, second grade, and I'm in a section that the music, we're talking about music from the 70s and back, right? So my first tape that I pulled to rent was a Ray Charles tape. So I brought the Ray Charles and Lou Rawls tape. I brought it to the counter.
Classics.
So yeah, so she's like, "You gonna what you know about Ray Charles?" I'm like, who don't know who Ray Charles is? And then, I'm telling her titles of songs and she's like looking at me crazy, like this little first grader second, what he knows about Ray Charles. So she loaned me, she let me take it out, brought it home. I'm playing this in the radio because my brother had gotten this was the first year. So this is the boombox era. All the radios is gigantic. But the year my brother got his first radio, his first cassette radio, it was a gray joint with a little mic in it. This is the first radio Sony made that they added a mic to it. They allowed the speakers to detach. This was the detachable speakers, single cassette joint, right? So I popped the tape in and I'm listening to it upstairs. So my mom's like, she knows she hearing Ray Charles. And so she's like, what the, So she comes, Ruben, you listen to Ray Charles? I'm like, yeah, I'm listening to Ray Charles. I got it from, the library or whatever. So she's like, okay, you know? So I'll be vibing all of that. And weekly, I'm just pulling different kind of tapes, just listening to it. It wasn't like, I love this artist as yet or whatever. I'm just listening to the different sounds because that's what interests me, you know? And slowly but surely, between my mom, the library, renting the tapes, I started to develop a like for particular artists and particular sounds and started to learn, this is this era, this is that era, this is why the music sounds different. This is called blues, this is soul music, this is funk music, you know. When I heard funk, it just hit me different to a point where it was just I fell in love instantly. Like that's my genre, you know. Any funk artist, I'm vibing with. I heard Sly and the Family Stone. My mom used to tell me stories about Sly and the Family Stone because my mom go to a lot of concerts because we love music, So she been to Bob Marley's last concert in Madison Square, you know. She's been to any artist you could think of, bro. She's been to their concerts. She went and saw them live. I developed that same nature, In my years of hip hop, I've been to a lot of concerts. I even, with my brother, helped to put together concerts. Come to find out, my grandfather, who was the first pharmacist on the North Coast in our area, which is Aruca, but Aruca is from Aruca to Arima on the North Shore, Trinidad. Um, Even in Tunapuna, they didn't even have, and this is we're talking about some miles. You know what I'm saying? My grandfather was the only drugstore, the only pharmacy, and he's not like your modern day pharmacist. Everything that he prescribed, he created from scratch. He had to make it from scratch. He had, all the raw herbs and extractions, and he had to create his own distillery to distill the water and to make everything sterile and everything to create these formulas that he would give to people, and when he passed on, the streets was flooded because he helped so many people through the years. People who couldn't afford medication, he would make it for them and just give it to them like, yo, get better, and that transferred into me as well because I'm into herbs. I'm into a lot of things, brother. So, music is a part of my life, but so getting back into the music aspect of things, um, I had that time period where I was just listening to everything, all different forms of genre of music. So my scope was very wide. The person who brought me into hip hop on a different level now. So me and my brother, we listening, vibing to the music on the radio shows, right? But hip hop and real hip hop heads understand that hip hop has elements to it, right? So one of the elements, the first element me and my brother really got involved with was breakdancing and popping. My brother was nice with the popping, you know, um, basement parties.
What's your
Hmm.
brother name?
Godspeed.
Godspeed. All right, continue.
So, you know, um, he got nice with the popping. Um, go to parties. Of course, dudes is battling, and this is the era. I mean, brothers is bringing cardboard on the block. We battling outside. I got nice with the breaking. You know, I'll be practicing in the house all the time, getting nice with it, getting nice with it. You know, so we got into elements that way. Then my brother would be with his man Bill. And like I said, his man Bill was like a poet, but he was an MC. His favorite MC was like LL Cool J. You know, a MC from my neighborhood that I really used to be around was a brother by the name of Prince. And, and my brother always made jokes about this, but Prince, when I met Prince, he used to walk around with a notebook, with a rhyme book. And I only heard him rhyme one time. This is how I knew he actually could really rhyme. And he was really nice. Um, but his thing was he was pissed off with LL because he said LL stole some of his rhymes. Now, LL might say, no, it never happened. Who knows? Right? Some people believe them. I believe them,
Hold on, hold on, hold
to
on.
a point.
Where was he?
Yeah,
Okay, now, okay. Where was he
from
for L?
Southside.
No, where was he for L to steal his rhymes? Like in the park? Like how did L? How
So
did he come across L for him to even think L stole his
pretty
rhymes?
so pretty much that's how it went. Um, every neighborhood in Queens, well, South Side, period. I ain't gonna speak for every neighborhood. South Side definitely had MCs all over the place in pockets, different dudes that write rhymes and stuff like that. Some of them would let it be known, some of them were a little bit quiet with their craft, you know.
So
This
was
is early hip hop.
so he
So,
knew he
mhm.
knew L early hip hop, like before L became L.
So now this is the thing. L tells his story, right? So L is originally from Long Island, right? Out east. But his grandmother lived in St. Albans, and St. Albans at the time was popping because that's where James Brown, Count Basie, Ella Fitzgerald, this is where all these people lived because James Brown went and bought a house there. So all these other artists migrated there, right? And that was a musical mecca for many years, St. Albans, Queens. So you had kind of had to have money. St. Albans was like the pretty side of town, put it that way. But when you come down the block a little bit, you know what I mean? You're gonna fall into Baisley, you're gonna fall into the 40s, you're gonna, you know, Guy Burr right there. Once you hit Guy Burr, you know, okay, it's a different zone. It gotta be a different walk. And LL said he used to take his bike and ride over the south side. Now we know LL came up underneath another MC that was an early rapper by the name of Silver Fox. Silver Fox is the grandfather to LL and Coogee Rap style, right? And we know this through G Rap because G Rap always showed respect. That's one thing with me, with L. L should have showed that respect. Of course, he mentioned T La Rock, but when you listen to early L, you definitely hear Silver Fox in his flow, you know. Um,
Hold up. Who is Silver
yeah.
Fox? Who's Silver Fox?
So Silver Fox is an old school MC that you got to research, bro. That's
Word.
somebody you should interview too,
Word.
because Silver Fox is still around and he don't get that many interviews, and he should, because two dynamite artists came out of his style.
This is the first I'm ever hearing his name.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna put you on to Silver Fox. I'm gonna
But
put you
but
on him.
but continue.
But yeah, so that's the father of their style, right? So L would be in the neighborhood. So who's to say that L never heard Prince rhyming in one of the parks? You know, Prince and Otis. Otis was a DJ. Everybody knew Otis for DJing. His younger brother used to DJ. So, you know, back
What year
then,
was this?
DJs this is the 80s. We talking about 83, 84, 85, you know? So this is the 80s. And I met these brothers doing this thing. This is what they did, you know? So who's to say that Prince wasn't rhyming when Otis was spinning somewhere and, you know, or Prince is in the park rhyming because everybody knew it, because he walked around with his book. He did walk around with his book. That's absolute. I remember that, you know. Who's to say that? And he was a brother that always dressed well. Shorties, I mean, flocked them, you know. That was easy pickings for them. I mean, he looked like an established artist. You know what I'm saying? He just never had a record out there that I knew of, you know. But I did hear him rhyme before. He did kick a rhyme for me, and it was pretty good. I mean, for its time, it definitely was pretty good, you know. So whether else took something from him, and this is what I'll say, right? So back then, you know, it was like a taboo to bite somebody's rhyme or somebody's style or the way somebody dressed, right? Because we was about originality back then, and that was the order of the day. I'll say this though, for me, from my understanding on how this universe operates, you can have a thought and another person can have the same exact thought as you. The person who's going to own that thought or have ownership in the world is a person who comes out and produces or manifests that thought first.
Yo, so check this out. Michael Jackson used to say, he used to be like, let me hurry up and get to the studio and get this idea off before Prince would do it. You know what I'm trying to tell you?
Right,
Because you're
right.
right. It's in the air, you know?
Yeah, knowledge is universal, and the mind is universal. You know, people think the mind is personal. My understanding is the mind is universal. Your brain is personal. So how you express and perceive and receive what's in the mind, right? All is mind, um, is personal. But knowledge is universal. Thoughts are universal. You personalize it, but the idea is universal. Somebody else can have it, and that has happened to me. You know, I've had ideas of things, different things from the health world, musical things. My brother's seen it repeatedly with the music, and you know, then it manifests itself, you know, through someone else because I didn't act on it or I wasn't in position to act on it. I can't be mad. But you know, back then we lacked this knowledge, and to this day we still lack that knowledge. Some of us, you know, so we'll say, "Oh, he bit my style, he bit my rhyme," you know, and it may not even be that. It may not even be that. It's just that they had a similar idea or same idea and acted on it before you could. They pulled the trigger before you. You can't be upset. you know. But I used to ride with my boy Prince because one, I'm loyal that way. We all from 140. We 140 to the end of the story. So when he said L bit his rhymes, at that point, my brother would play LL in the house. I was like, I'll just walk over the radio, bloop, turn it off. Yo, what you doing? Yo, he bit Prince style, son. We ain't messing with. He not from 140. We don't rock with him. And Luck was like, yo, that's my dude, Walk like a panther, like, you know what I'm saying? My brother and I was a big Mo D fan on top of that. Me and my brother used to go at it because my brother loved Cool Mo D too. But my brother was into solo MCs and I was into groups. So Cool Mo D used to be part of a group called Treacherous Three. And I love Treacherous Three. When they stuff come on the radio, it was danceable, it was stylish, it was flashy, it was fly to me. So I used to be into Treacherous Three. My first hip hop tape that I ever received, I didn't buy this, I received it, the cassette. So I have a first record and I have a first cassette. My first cassette was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. My first record, my uncle Bass, who I told you is the first generation of pan-tuners in my family, he had bought me Dougie Fresh and Slick Rick, the show. And I had that record. He bought me that on Christmas, you know. So I was always into groups and my brother was into soloists, So now
So
Kumo
hold
D
on.
goes solo.
So
Yeah.
talking about groups, is that the
Yep.
reason you end up in creating a group with
Yeah.
what was the name of the
Absolutely.
group again?
In a circle.
In
In
the
a
circle.
circle.
And
Yes.
who was the group members?
And oh man. All right. So in the circle, um, man, it's a lot of us, brother. I'll name a few. So it's myself. I go by Flow. When I'm rhyming, my MC name is Flow. Forever love over wealth. Um, then you have my brother Godspeed. Then you have the Quantum Leap. You have Mr. Fantastic. I Vision. There was a group called TNT. Um, you have my sister Lovely. She sang and she did poetry. She was on uh, Night at the Apollo, the talent show. You remember when the Apollo used to have a talent show,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and you would win, and then you have to defend your crown and all of that.
Yep, yep.
Well, my sister defended her crown so many times, man. They had to retire her.
And
She
what year
she
was this? What year was this?
this when she did that. This is the '90s now.
Okay. It wasn't televised
Yeah.
though, right? It wasn't televised.
Yeah, that show used to be televised.
No, I mean
But
her winnings, because I remember the show. What was her name?
yes,
What was her name?
Lovely.
Lovely, lovely.
Yep, yep, that's her name. She sang and she did poetry, and her spoken word, it's rhythmic like a rhyme. You know, she's just dope. She's just a dope individual. My sister Serenity, super dope female MC. Wish that I actually had some of her material for the world to hear her. Um, Ultraviolet. I met Serenity and Ultraviolet together. They were best friends at the time. R.I.P. Ultra V and my brother I Vision. They're no longer with us, but super dope, super dope. I would say Serenity style is like her name. This was a female MC that was very feminine, like let's say you remember this group called Diggable Planets?
Absolutely.
All right, so Ladybug Mecca, you see how she rhymes and she's very feminine in her style,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? So Serenity is like that, but Serenity, no disrespect to Ladybug Mecca, is slicker with her rhymes. She really hits you. Simple like a native tongue style, but potent when you hear her, Um, yeah, Serenity and the Quantum Leap, they had their own crew. So there was a group called Enemy Grounds within Inner Circle, and that consists of Crucial and the Quantum Leap. And Serenity ran with them as well because that was his queen at the time. And super dope group, super dope. Crucial is from the same Crucial from Crucial Keys, from Alicia Keys. This is how I met Alicia Keys at a later date, was through them, you know. And a lot of people didn't know. They thought Crucial just make beats for Alicia Keys or with Alicia Keys, but he actually was a pretty dope MC himself, you know. Um, Performed Wetlands, a couple of places. Like all of us, we've performed many places, opened up for many people. Some of the other artists, a brother by the name of Nasi Nemo, he lives in Brooklyn. So let me explain how Inner Circle was created and why Inner Circle was even created. I gotta shout my brother P Hayes from LI, one of the dopest MCs that I've ever heard, and I've heard many dope MCs, I even heard you, brother. You dope,
I appreciate it, man. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
absolutely. I gotta take my hat off to you. Brother named P Hayes. You ever heard him? You would like his flow, subject matter, the way he give it up. Yeah, one of the fastest writers I've ever seen. This brother can sit down in an hour and he writes songs like water. It's just a thing that he does. It's an exercise that he do where he's just writing. That's another thing with me. Because I came through the music and freestyling, I analyze a lot of people. Um, when it comes to hip hop, I got a lot of history and stories because I'm a person that I love to be out and about. And there's no fear in me to go anywhere. I go anywhere and everywhere by myself. It don't matter, you know.
Talking about
Um,
talking about going anywhere.
yeah.
Didn't you go to Africa?
Yes, I did. Yep. I went
So
to Ghana.
you went to Ghana. So when you was down there, did you check out the music scene? Like what was going on far as music down there?
Oh yeah, and I got yeah, oh yeah, and I got one of my brothers over there. He's living in South Africa now. He got he got a bunch of artists that are dope, bro. That could rhyme. Some of them rhyme. Some of them do Afro beats, Afro pop. Yeah, he got a gang of artists that are very talented. Some of them got music on the platforms already. In the future, some of them will definitely love to do an interview with you because
Absolutely,
they
man. That should be fucking magnificent, bro.
yeah, because they need exposure. Africa is filled with talent, just like Trinidad, filled with talent. I've had ciphers at the river. I'm talking about when I go to the river in Trinidad, brother. We in there from 5 in the morning. You know, I'm talking about like
Now hip hop is so
it's
broad.
yeah.
When you down here and you going bar for bar, are they rhyming like you are American, or are they like Americanized, or are they rhyming like in a language? How does that work?
So in Africa, well, the part I was in, they do speak English as well. But in Ghana, for instance, the average Ghanaian knows a minimum of three languages, bro, and English is always one.
No, I know they probably know English, but are they
Yeah,
making music in a language, or you know?
they do it in all. They'll blend it. I've heard
Mm,
songs in Ghana that haven't reached here, may never reach here, or may have, and I just don't know. That is English and Tree. That's one of the languages they speak. Blend. Their hook might be in Tree, but their verses is in English. you know.
Yo, that sound like a
Um,
fucking crazy song, bro. Like I'd love to
yeah,
do a
man.
song like
Yeah.
that, bro, with one of them.
Yeah, bro. Yeah. And Ghana reminded me, it's a place I want to invest in because it really reminded me of the Trinidad that I grew up in, not this modern Trinidad that's there now. The Trinidad I grew up in was extremely peaceful, in the sense of we did things back then in the 80s that in the 80s in America a person would never think to do, you know.
Like what you mean
Um,
though? What you mean by that?
I'll give you an example. On the weekends, we'll shoot out and go to the beach, right? Probably a 45-minute run or a little bit more, depending on which beach we go to. And on the way there, you'll see people walking along the roadside and they throw their thumb out, they letting you know they're going in the same direction as you. And if we have space in the car, we just pull up on them. Hey, how far down you going? A mile, 2 miles, 3 miles. Okay, jump in. We don't even know them. They just jump in with us and our whole family, and we going down the road and we talking and you know, and we building like they family. You know what I'm saying? We drop them off and we continue on our way. We coming home, same thing. Night, day, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. You know, that's how Trinidad was. Trinidad taught me a lot. I mean, when I tell you I learned so much in Trinidad and I'm grateful for the lessons because it helped to shape me as a person, that I was able to help a lot of people I've come across and not looking for nothing in return. I just do it because it was the right thing to do at the time and I had the time to do it, you know? Sometimes you might bark up on something and it might be the right thing for you to do, but it may not be the right time. You may not have that time. You may not be able to lend that time. You just got to be honest with yourself, at that time. But yeah, I mean,
So I want to backtrack a little bit, right? I want to talk
yeah.
about.
I want to say one thing,
Go ahead, talk
just
about
to
it.
give you a scope of how large Inner Circle was. Shout out Seven, Mahogany Jones. Um, yeah, it was a lot of us. We even had a band. So my group Inner Circle, we started on the spoken word scene. Um, I've rocked with the likes of Saul Williams, Jessica Care um, me plus other members in my crew, and these are people that are huge in the spoken word field. You know, um, Abio Dune from Last Poets, I rocked at his house. He used to every weekend. We used to go to a spot called the Brooklyn Moon that was in Brooklyn on Fulton. Little small spot had the best carrot cake you ever have, right? But they used to hold an open mic, and we used to go there. People like Donnell Rollins, he used to be there. Dougie Doug used to come there. So it's a combination of singing, poetry, rhyming, comedy. You know. At this time, we also linked with a brother
What was the name of
through
the
my
spot?
brother,
What was the name of the spot?
Brooklyn Moon, the
Brooklyn
Brooklyn
Moon.
Moon.
Okay.
Yeah,
And what year was this?
this is the 90s.
In the '90s. Got you.
Yeah, right. So at this time, um, all these types of artists are coming out. The Locks, one of the Locks members, I think is Sheik. I think it's Sheik. Sheik's cousin, yeah, is my man. His name is Graphics. Phenomenal writer. As far as scripts, as far as spoken word and MCing, phenomenal. I mean, people like Luch, they would love Graphics. Graphics, phenomenal writer. Um, Met him there at the Brooklyn Moon. There was in Brooklyn, there was other open mics that we will all go to. We'll just hop from one to the other. If we're in Manhattan, it was the same deal. We'll hop from one to the other. And Lifelong, another artist that presently puts out ton of music, He's been a part of a ton of different groups. One of the main groups that was known in the underground that he was a part of was called Stronghold. You know, he's an inner circle member. Um, you know, and they were on television. Breeze Ever Flowing. He destroyed Capadonna. Sea Ray's Walls got retired off of I think it was 106 or the other one where they was battling, all of that. But Inner Circle consisted, if I had to mention a number for the members, was definitely about 50 of us. And I might be being polite, but it was definitely about 50 writers, musicians
50?
slash producers. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. We did one show where about 30 of us performed. And it was in Brooklyn, actually, in the park. And it was called, it was trying to do over Woodstock, and they call it Wordstock.
Uh,
And they asked us to perform. And it was like, yo, we want Inner Circle to perform. And they were comparing us to Wu Tang at the time. They were saying we was the Wu Tang of the spoken word, but they didn't understand that we just love rocking mics. So it didn't matter if it was a spoken word event. I'm taking my rhymes or my freestyle and I'm just hitting you with it. No beat. I don't need no beat. It don't matter. You know, beats is on. We doing that too. So that's how we were operating at the time. So we was getting shows for whatever came across the plate. We even put on shows where we're the headliners and we had people perform underneath us, you know. But yeah, about 30 of us had hit the stage um, in Brooklyn, and we didn't have music and we created music. So my sister started harmonizing. My brother LaQuantum Lee beatboxes. So he did the beatbox. He was the drummer, you know. Everybody else clapping, snapping, making sounds, and we made music with our mouth. You know what I'm saying? We'll make the beat on the spot, and then first artist just hits the mic and just bombs it, you know. And that's what we were doing. We was just bombing it the whole time, you know.
Hip hop essence,
Yeah,
man. Hip hop, man. I love it.
yeah. Like
Y'all
we,
took it back to the park without the
yes,
turntables.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. Like we do it however we got to do it. You know what I'm saying? And that's what made us unique. And then when we brought in the live band, they're like, "Damn, hold on, y'all got a band too?" And we're like, "Yeah." We've been had the band. We just need an event that would allow us to showcase our band. And when people started to get a taste of our band, then they're like, "Damn," Then we started also doing concerts of our own too, putting on shows and shining light on other artists.
So
You know,
at this time, are you producing? Are you making the beats for the
yeah.
artists?
At that time, I'm making beats, I'm recording, I'm engineering
What you
and
making beats
making
on?
beats. And
What you making beats on?
so the first thing I started out with, so a part of my life for almost a year, I went to Canada, right, with the intention to live in Canada. I left school, graduated Uniondale, shot out to Canada. Go to Canada. My cousin's like, yo, we could get you residency here and you go to college for free. Don't stay in America and pay when you could come here and go for free. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm up there a couple of weeks. I bagged me a little shorty, you know. I'm moving around. I'm playing ball all over the place. I met a bunch of MCs. Some of these MCs that roll with Cardinal, the Fishel, and their little clique, Rascals, and I was in their projects. I destroyed them in basketball out there. Um, and then I'm like, yo, I'm into music, and they're like, yo, you do music? Yeah. So I met a lot of artists out there, and they're dope up there. I like their sound. They strive to add on to the art form. They're not just trying to sound like a New York rapper, which was real dope at that time. But it got too cold, and then I jumped on the bus, came right back down, brother. You know, but
96.8 Dungeon Radio, the platform for independent creators.